Hey, this is Jason. Good to see you guys again. It's been a while since I've done a video. Today I'm going to do a little something different. I might do a couple of these, 2 or 3, 4, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to do a little bit of an Iverson retrospective, and I wanted to start sort of at the beginning of the company, starting with the history of sort of Mr. E.V. Iverson, who started the company. And so I'm going to reference a letter that was written August 3rd, 1985, by Genie Iverson Clymer, and that's Elmer Iverson's daughter. And she wrote a letter at the request of Burt Preston in Kirkland, Washington in 1985. I said that already. Burt was a dear friend of my father's, very fascinating guy, classical trained musician, but ended up curating, when we met him, the Seattle Eddie Bauer's sporting good department and an art gallery. And so he would carry Iverson Calls, and we went up there and did a couple special shows that were there. Just a wonderful human being. But apparently he requested a history from Genie of Iverson. And so I'm going to read that just because I think I could tell it. But it just seems more poetic to read the words of his daughter. So the letter writes, Dear Mr. Preston, I hope these notes on Father will help you. All the family photo albums are in storage at the moment, so I'm afraid I cannot send you the picture you requested. If I can be of any further help, please don't hesitate to call. I mean, we have some pictures of Mr. Iverson, so that would have been needed to get some special ones here. But I'll read this chronology. So Father was born in Reynolds, North Dakota, a first-generation American-born Norwegian, and the second of 6 children. As a small boy, he moved with his family to Badger, Minnesota, where his father established a general store and where Father grew up. So, a long time ago now. In the community on the Great Flyway, hunting was a way of life. As a child, Father learned to hunt duck, geese, and other wildfowl. By the time he was in high school, he was acting as a guide for various visiting hunters, which is pretty awesome. So he is obviously very passionate about it, but also very good at it. I believe these groups were organized by my father's father, so that maybe they had some sort of organized hunting situation coming out of the general store. Who knows, but sounds kind of cool. Most of the men Father hunted with at this time were voice called for varying degrees of success. A lot of voice calling, not on duck calls themselves. In 1917, Father graduated from the United States Naval Academy and began his 29-year career with the Navy. Obviously a very smart guy. Went into the Naval Academy and then spent a whole career doing that. Hunting during this period of Father's life became a sport he enjoyed with his friends. Whenever there was time, interested in the idea of good handheld duck call, he experimented with various devices from time to time. So my dad, you can kind of trace the Iversons' history back to this moment, which is somewhere between 1917 and 1945. 1945 will come up you'll see on our logo, current logo, as important in just a minute. But in 1943, Father, now married and the father of 2 young children, lived in a rented brownstone house in New York's Greenwich Village. A commander in the Navy, he was attached to the Brooklyn Navy Yard as damage control officer. So keep that in mind, that the genesis of this company was Greenwich Village in New York, because that's where he was stationed at that time. In 1945, while convalescing from minor surgery in the Brooklyn Naval Hospital, Father had access to the hospital's physical therapy woodworking shop, the result of his first handmade hardwood duck call. So he made his first handmade duck call in a wood shop and in the physical therapy department of the hospital, which is great. Working on the calls continued when Father went home, setting up a workspace in the brownstone's basement kitchen. He shaped, tuned, and tested the calls and their inner workings. Occasionally, he was interrupted by people walking by the sidewalk, overheard, who stopped to ask where the ducks were. Now, you think that sounds kind of crazy, but I've had that happen even in the last 5 years. So it's just funny because it does happen. Impressed with the call's design, Mother showed it to the staff of Abercrombie and Fitch's hunting equipment department in New York. A request for the calls to sell followed. So his first outlet for selling calls was Abercrombie and Fitch, which is pretty funny when you think about nowadays. It's a kind of a more of a young person's fashion clothing company, but it'll also come up in another way in the history sometime later. Father's calls came to the attention of New York City's Museum of Modern Art, and their design and beauty won them a place in the museum's permanent collection. So I'm assuming it's still there. Never gone and seen it, but that's kind of an amazing thing about those duck calls in particular. Finally, demand for the duck calls continued to grow. Following his retirement from the Navy after the war, father was able to devote his full time and energy to making calls done by hand from treated, non-absorbing hardwoods such as rosewood, ebony, cocobolo, briar, and teak. The calls were eventually handled by hunting equipment shops across the United States. So, great little history from his daughter, Genie. It's just awesome when you think about how people's lives and their journeys go. So his beginnings were rooted in outdoor life, hunting and mouth calling. He ends up messing around, making duck calls. Then he goes to the Naval Academy and spends a career in the Navy, and ends up circling back to making duck calls in Greenwich Village in New York. It's pretty fantastic. So there's a whole nother phase of things of life that he had, because he ended up in San Mateo, California, and I don't know exactly when he moved, but that's sort of when we met him in the early 70s. But I just wanted to show you some of the calls that he did. I don't have any super old ones here. Some beautiful old calls. I think I've mentioned before in previous videos how he used to put a hole in the stopper here to run a piece of string through as a lanyard. These calls during this period of time used sort of a straight tone barred bent reed, which is the real foot lake style design. He used all kinds of different woods. You can see here, this looks to be Brazilian rosewood, but a beautiful piece of wood. This is another rosewood call, and actually cocobolo, it appears, darkened with age, but again, bent reed, tone board. This call here, which I might do a specific video about, was basically a call that was made by Andy Bowles, who originated out of Little Rock, Arkansas. They struck up a friendship, and Mr. Iverson marketed calls made by Andy as Butte Creek calls, and then it would have his San Mateo address, well, not address, but at least the city on there. So this would tell you this was an Andy Bowles call, but was sold by Mr. Iverson. And so they had a business relationship and a friendship, and you can see this is just really just an Andy Bowles call, which is, he's another fantastic historical duck call maker. You can see another big kind of, you can see where the shape changed again, the lip on that kind of changed. This one kind of is, in 1964, it says here, still has the EV on there. Another beautiful call made out of cocobolo. This is kind of another one where the shape changed again. Sometimes these shapes, when you see barrels made like this, my dad and I would wonder, or at least my dad would wonder, I should say, whether some of these barrels that were being made by other people than Mr. Iverson. Not that they're bad or ugly, because this is a beautiful call and a beautiful piece of wood. It's just that the shape sort of started departing from what was a traditional Iverson shape, and he did hire some teenagers to work in the shop and turn barrels for him, so that could be part of the explanation. I know I can tell the barrels that I've turned through the years compared to my dad's, so everybody to their each to their own. This is a beautiful old teak call here, kind of in a similar era as this one, but as you can see, the barrels look quite different. This looks like more of a call that would have been tuned by Mr. Iverson, in my opinion. But just hard to say, just beautiful. It's kind of fun to look at some of the paperwork. He used to include a string, an extra reed, this old piece of paper here, which is fun to look at. It's kind of brown with age, but 1750 is scratched out, and he raised prices at some point to $25. And then this is an RZ. I can't remember which one. Anyway, I can't remember which one I pulled out of here, but it's called Rosewood Special, and that would tell you that it's a cocobolo, the SP there. But then this is going to fall apart probably. But you can see just calling information, tuning information, care and repairs, some other product information. You can see EV Iverson, P.O. Box, Sacramento, or San Mateo, California. This poor thing is falling apart. I probably shouldn't mess with it, but well. And another one I wanted to show you Well, yeah, this is actually what the box the teat came out of, which is incorrect. It says Rosewood, $10. This means this was an incredibly old call, and you can tell by the shape of that. It doesn't even have the decorative line. This is an early picture. It doesn't have even the second decorative line on the barrel either. But I'd be interested in knowing. I don't have that call represented here in my current video. But again, this gives you an idea. At the time, he was making quail calls and he was making whistles. Again, out of San Mateo, which is pretty cool. And then he had these little 4-call sets. You can see these fancy sets that had a duck call, goose call, pintail whistle, and then this little guy, which was a widgeon whistle that he had made and sold, which is pretty genius. So there's that. I did want to show you a goose call real quick. It's a really old goose call. I don't exactly know the age of this, but he typically would do 2 lines for goose calls after a period of time. There's not a marker on this. I would guess this is probably a similar era as this call here. Even though the length is quite different. So there's... Needs a tune. Not surprising. So you can see here an old quail call. Put a nice little sticker on there. This is made of ebony. It's pretty awesome. Showed you this whistle a second ago, widgeon whistle. I don't know how many of these are around, but it sounds pretty good. He sold these in that set. I don't think there's anything super special to show you here other than he always like scratched out prices. We did that as kids too. We had a bunch of stuff printed up. We just scratch stuff out and write new numbers in there, but this is just all scratched up. Cracks me up. Good old times. Here's the old whistle. This is kind of cool. This looks to be a call. It's got that little side thing, a little piece of brass pin on the side. And the way that the finish looks, I'm guessing this is one of the calls that he had made in Brazil, and it actually had a hole in for the lanyard there too. But this is pre 2 holes. But he made these, but he also had them outsourced to a company in Brazil who would turn them for him. But you can see what's kind of cool. I love this picture of him in here. But this is the paperwork, this little instruction sheet. Iverson sprig whistle, model SRB, $8. And then again, how to blow the whistle. And then there's a great picture of him in there, which is fantastic. And then this is another one. I just wanted to pull this out because it had the little Iverson sprig whistle on it. And this must have been a little later when he got these boxes. Because again, these are a little different. This looks like one he actually turned. Because looks like his finish on there would be my guess. This one, let's see how much this one costs. Oh, yes, this is earlier for sure. $4. Look at that. Model SR. There's that awesome picture of him in there. P.O. Box 405. Anyway, just a little fun today. Hope you enjoyed this video. More to come. Thanks. Have a great day.